Good morning and welcome. We'll give it a minute for folks to join. I am on location at Boston Children's Museum. It's a beautiful day in Boston. Although Titus, I don't miss our commute to our old office.
Same.
I'm gonna spotlight us. Where's Jayleese? All right. So this is, I think, our last episode of our meet and greet with our Advocacy Network cohort, number 3 members, along with Jayleese Le Blanc, who it works with strategies to help us with the Advocacy Network. So we'll hear more from hear more about Jayleese's role. But Shavon, let's start with you. So if you could tell us a little bit about you, how you came into be your current role, and then maybe a little bit of how you got connected to the Advocacy Network.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. So as Amy shared, I am Shavon. My last name is Drayton. I'm currently the Director of Early Education Training and Assessment here at Horizons for Homeless Children. I've been in the field of early education for about 18 years now. So I started off my journey as an infant lead teacher back in the early 2000s. And was a teacher for 11 years before I transitioned into the office. That was a hard move for me, but it really helped to understand that I moved from molding young minds to helping mold adult minds in their teaching practices. So once I was able to wrap my mind around that, it was easy to be in a leadership role and be a supervisor. In this current position where I am at Horizons, I've been here for about 6.5 years. My direct supervisor, Jade Rodriguez, who's the executive director here, was a part of the second cohort with the Advocacy Network. And once she was done with her journey, she definitely shared her experience and what she was able to really receive from being a member of the network, and then recommended me to be a part of their third cohort. And I'm so happy that she did. So happy.
Shavon, tell us a little bit about your higher education journey that you're on right now as well.
Yes, Amy points out my higher education journey. I am currently a part-time grad student at Boston University in the leadership for policy advocacy in early childhood well-being there at BU, where Amy also teaches some of those courses in that program. It took me a long time to really figure out what I wanted a master's in. As some of you know, in early education, you don't necessarily always need that upper echelon degree in order to make waves in a good way within this field. And so at the time, I didn't think that it was necessary that I go on to get a master's. And to be perfectly transparent, I also didn't want to pay for it. However, with the great advocacy from the state and the funding with the ECE scholarships, I've been able to take advantage of that opportunity and go on to get a master's degree, to where I am very hopeful of where it'll take me in my new passion for policy.
And Shavon, I had a very similar experience, as a teacher, then director, and I waited to get my master's degree, and this program did not exist. I probably would have gone to it, one of the reasons why BU created this program. Sharon Lynn Kagan and Kathy Thornburg kind of developed this master's level program for early childhood well-being. And BU really has thought about what does that mean in health, mental health, social work. And I think it'd be at a place at BU Wheelock where you have access to the School of Public Health. Part of the great part of that master's program is you can determine so many of the classes that you take. You will have to take the class I teach, Shavon, so I can't wait for that. But I think, I think having a master's in advocacy, policy, and leadership in child well-being, is also making a statement because I got my master's in public administration because I was interested in government and how it worked. But I think a lot of educators think about that. Exactly that thought process is very similar to kind of how I thought through getting a master's degree. So thanks for sharing. Jayleese, tell us a little bit about you. Tell us what your official role is because I cannot think of the words.
Good morning. So my name is Jayleese Le Blanc. I'm the program assistant
Thank
for
you.
the
I was gonna
Advocacy
say,
Network.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And I currently am a work from home mom. I have 2 young children, 2 and 5. Before that, I was you might hear her.
There
She's
she is.
shouting in the background. Before that, I was a classroom teacher for over 10 years. It's kind of a weird space between having children, and I think sort of like everyone struggling in early ed, the pay didn't make sense for me to work, especially with young children, but I found strategies for children and now I'm here and I'm happy and I'm loving it. It's perfect.
And so Jayleese has really helped our capacity when we think about the advocacy network and really has been able. So Jayleese, give us a little bit of a window into kind of what's your day-to-day working with the members of the cohort.
Sure. I am the first point of contact for most of the cohort members. Usually if they have some questions about meetings or some goals they want to hit, they'll reach out to me first and we'll kind of try to figure some things out, brainstorm. We have some one-on-one meetings, which are really nice to get to know everyone and chat with people. It's my favorite part. And I think just kind of being the middle person between me and the Advocacy Network and strategies, because I feel like you are all quite busy and I can respond to emails very quickly. And sometimes I feel like, it's tough doing all that strategies does.
And I'm going to bring Titus in a minute, but I think, helping us as an organization build our capacity to be, provide better support, the one-on-one contact with the Advocacy Network. Now we have 3 cohorts. This is our 3rd. So we have graduates, from 2, and we really want to think about ways of engaging alum. And so as there are opportunities that come along, Jayleese also helped us coordinate. So most recently, we did 2 webinars for Advocacy 101 with Boston Public Schools. They have a family council. So we, and we invite the Advocacy Network folks to come join us to help us do that. And so Shavon, tell us a little bit about your experience in the network, and then maybe what's your why, kind of why are you doing this work? And then tell us a little bit about what you're focused on for your project.
Sure. You might have to repeat some of that because I might forget. So yes, what was the first part? See,
what's your why? Why do you do this work, Shavon?
So my why, I was never really passionate about policy and advocacy. I think it really started in 2012 when my eldest daughter started her journey into school. And so not preschool, but first grade. I am a resident of Boston. And back then, there was a lot of things that were going on with the Boston public school system that I just didn't feel was conducive to the learning environment I wanted to give to my daughter. So I signed her up for the METCO program here in Boston, to where she would be bused out to a suburban town to receive her public education. So she went to Wayland Public Schools. A graduate, went all the way through. However, when she first got there, I think that's when my journey into advocacy really started. So that I So much so that I started going to the Metco lobby days back then in the mid 2000s. It was lobby days instead of advocacy days,
Right.
to where I really started to learn how important the people's voice is and how it can elicit change within a system that is not equitable for all. And so, if that is the beginning, it continued throughout her journey in public school. My second daughter also. And then once they got into high school, so now this is the early, I said the late teens, so around 2018 or so, I was really able to see the connection with going to those advocacy days at the State House, ensuring my voice is being heard within Wayland, because the Metco program is specifically for Black and Brown children that live within the city of Boston and get bused out to suburban towns. And so very often there are not many Black and Brown students within that particular school. And so I also had to advocate for my child in that way for the within the specific school. It started to kind of expand once I also gained employment here at Horizons. At first, I didn't even know that there was an early education advocacy day, and I had already been in early education field for 15 years by that time.
Right.
So that was really interesting for me to learn once I got here, and so then it really just exploded where I was going to the State House at least 3 times throughout the year for different advocacy opportunities within the different pockets of groups that I was in. Most recently, I would say that my drive in terms of continuing this work of advocacy has been inclusive of housing segregation and the inequities around that, and how it intersects with early education and child outcomes. Everybody wants to be able to have a neighborhood school, which is amazing. It's close to home. As a parent, that's wonderful that I can live in the city, work in the city, and my children be educated within the city. However, being in a city that is quite isolated and segregated in terms of racial capacity and housing opportunities, that starts to perpetuate a system of inequities thereafter. And so if we're continuing to educate our children within the city of Boston that does not have high performing public schools for secondary education, then you're starting to need to outsource. And then having the opportunities for your children then also become an issue to where their achievement is not at the same standard or at the same level, rather, of white counterparts. And so that has been of a great interest for me this past year and a half, to where I've really been delving deep into the research behind housing segregation and child outcomes as it relates to early education.
And Shavon, just your personal story about your connection initially, as a parent, we hear that all the time from elected officials, people who want to serve, who have a passion. It can typically come from a personal connection or kind of an experience. So to hear that story is really incredible. And to think kind of now that your day-to-day job at Horizons, right, that you're at a place that's really thinking about this intersection. You're also right in line with the governor. We've been thinking a lot about the executive order that the governor issued in January around this intersection and all government approach. But thinking about what does the world look like for early education and care for young children and families, as you think about economic development, you think about labor and workforce, and then you think about education.
Yeah.
And so, Jayleese, as you get to sit and kind of like work with all the advocates as they're thinking about their projects, as they're thinking about kind of have folks log hours so that they can just track what they're doing. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and what's been exciting for you to see over the past couple of years?
Of course. So I've only been with 2 cohorts, so I can only speak on those, but it's been really nice to get an inside look on what people are really passionate about. I think seeing all these really niche things that people are interested in has been really good. I think for me personally too, to kind of be like, oh, well, this is an option or this is an issue, and it's bringing things to light that maybe I haven't noticed. It's also been interesting to see the dynamic between within the cohort and kind of how their interests are spreading to other cohort members and how they're making those connections and kind of building each other up and forming their own ideas and community within themselves. And that's been really cool. And I don't know, it's just I'm always learning. That's what I thought I would come in to kind of help people and direct them and answer some questions, but really it's kind of a learning experience for me. And I feel lucky because I've been able to be part of 2 cohorts instead of 1. No offense, Shavon, you only get 1 cohort, but it's been great, constantly learning and growing.
And then, so last Wednesday, when we were all at Polar Park, we arranged for the Advocacy Network participants to have kind of their own hospitality suite room. And it was so interesting because they were alum from the first 2 and then the current cohort. And someone from the first cohort said to me, like, we didn't have this, this in-person connection. I said, no one really has, right? The Advocacy Network is virtual. People come from across the state, but this was an opportunity to get together. And so Shavon and Jayleese, I'd love to kind of hear kind of what was that like to be in person. We've built relationships virtually, but as you had the opportunity, I will say one observation is we took a photo at the end of the night and everyone was just standing in a circle, kind of just like this circle of the Advocacy Network. So Jayleese, maybe start with you. What was that like to kind of meet everybody in person?
It was great. Actually, Shavon couldn't make it, and it was quite
Right.
sad.
As I said the question, I
Yeah.
realized that, yes.
But I must say, I was able to meet 2 of our members.
That's right.
Amy, I was able to see you in person, and I was able to meet, 3. Cherish, I was able to see her at a different opportunity. And also Harold and Paula, I was able to see them at a separate opportunity. So I tell you, like, even though I wasn't able to make that event, truly seeing all of the people live instead of in their little box, it really feels like a bit of a reunion because we all have grown in our ability to really voice what we're passionate about. And so when we see each other, we're like, yep, that's you.
Yeah, definitely, Shavon. I feel like even seeing people mingle together, you could tell that like everyone's so happy to see each other. And there are just things that Zoom cannot catch that you get in real life, like body language or little looks that you can give each other in real life where you're like, yes, I agree, same. Or like those little things you can add into a conversation that are actually really annoying on Zoom because you need to be on mute. But it was really, really nice to get everyone together, and I hope we can keep doing it for future cohorts. I'm hoping we can do it, so everyone can get together, maybe in different locations, like twice a year. I feel like we really need it. It was just a wonderful time to see everyone in real life. I felt like I was meeting celebrities. I know you all. I'm so proud of you all. I'm excited to meet you all. It was amazing.
There's a lot of advocacy going on in the chat that cohort 3 is the best. We'll leave it at that. And the support, I think that's the other thing. And Titus, I'd love to have you share some reflections, but being able to build this community virtually, being able to see the support that each gives each other. I mean, we've done a lot of things in the past, but it's been incredible. The cohort only meets an hour and a half every month on Zoom, sometimes, and sometimes we're hearing from the members about what they're working on, their projects. Sometimes we have guest speakers. Tonight is a cohort meeting, and so we're going to hear from Senator Robin Kennedy, who's going to join us on Zoom. But Titus, as you kind of as we kind of dreamed this up and are so grateful for the funding to be able to do this, can you share a few reflections just over the past 2 years?
Yeah, thanks for mentioning the funding. Boston Children's Hospital Collaboration for Community Health allows us to do this. And pay the cohort a stipend, funding for, supplies, program assistant, and other components of this, because we really do believe in paying the people that are doing the work. Not only is Shavon working full time, she's also a part-time graduate student, and so to ask her to take on one more thing without some acknowledgement of her time is unrealistic. So we are able to provide small stipends, but we also provide that flexibility. Like, we want folks to do 10 hours a month, including an hour and a half of the monthly meeting. Some months they may do more because they're really fired up and they have the time. Other times, life comes up and, they have to do less. But that's why Jayleese is so great at what she does, because Jayleese can check in, text, call, and connect with people on their terms. So yeah, it's really wonderful. The ripple effect is happening, Amy. I think when we envisioned this 4 years ago, we wanted to see people flourish and get connected with one another and have it grow over time. And that's happening, including the first two cohorts. We have 29 individuals, and we'll probably have 12 per year going forward. But the people they reach and teach in their communities is hundreds, if not thousands, all across the state. Concentration in Boston, but we've got Western Mass, Central Mass, Cape, Lawrence. We've got a lot of spread and reach. And then the last thing I'll say is, and this is probably the most important part, like, it's good for Amy to go to the State House. It's okay if I go to the State House, but in addition to that, it's really good if Shavon is at the State House, Jayleese is at the State House, Harold and Paula are at the State House, and I see them in the chat.
Yeah.
We need people with lived experience who are doing the work every day, and parents and practitioners and family child care owners. We need them at the State House, but we can help them get there. We can give them advice and tips. We can join them. But that's, I think, where the real advocacy power is going to come from, because there's so many of you. Like, Shavon, you are a superstar, so there's probably not many of you, but there are many people out there whose voices are important and need to be heard by the people in power. I think that's how we're going to change things and keep them on the right track in terms of policy, funding, awareness. So I'll stop. Thanks.
And Donna shared the meeting in person was incredibly powerful for all of us. Watching people recognize each other across the room and come together and being part of it was incredible. The energy created that day is truly how we move the work. And I think so, Shavon, if you can talk about your experience, can you share an aha moment where you kind of did, because I think your story is very similar. Most people probably aren't dreaming of a job in advocacy and policy, especially when you think about, direct service where you're working directly with children and families. But we know, and the strategies have really believed how important it is to make sure that people who are working every day with children and families are involved in the policy. So can you talk about an aha moment where you saw a connection in the work?
Yes. So I'm going to say my aha moment was actually quite a few years ago, where I was advocating in the METCO realm. So advocating for increased funding for that program, to where what I recognized in that time frame was that for the past 5 years, the program was only getting leveled funding, to where the coming year, there was the hope for increased seats in different districts. I knew that my particular district also needed increased busing opportunities to really be able to provide the children with access to after school opportunities. And from Wayland to Boston, as a parent, doing that drive so that your child can be on a specific sports team.
Right.
Track specifically was my child's sport of choice. can be really hard and daunting. And so what I was able to recognize is that once I got together and then also got some of the other parents that were on the track team from that district and from Boston, once we all got together and really started this phone chain of calling our representatives, how it was really able to help increase that funding for that year. Now, did it end up decreasing in subsequent years? Yes. And so that also is what told me you have to be on your representatives every single year.
That's right.
Naturally, you know, because they rotate out, there's different administrations, and different administrations have different priorities. And so that is why it's so important. And that's really what spoke to me, like, oh, this is not a one and done. It's all the time, all
we say
throughout the year.
no one-hit wonders, right? It can feel so good when you get something done, but any aha moments as you kind of have had this experience?
I don't know if I could say there was a real aha moment for this experience, but there was a point in time I feel like I was in the classroom and I had my first daughter, and I just felt like there was so much that needed to be done to help these families and to help these children. And I think at that moment, I realized that I felt like the classroom was not the best place for me, that I felt like there was a bigger picture and so many more things needed to be done. And I looked at, my daughter and just the opportunities she had because of where we were, and the opportunities, reflecting on my own life and my husband's life and what families really deserve to have. And I think after that, I just decided that, I needed to be somewhere else. I really love early ed. I really love the children, and children are the future, not to be cliche. They really are. And I think, I'm very lucky to have the position I have now, kind of on this journey, never ending journey.
I think you both brought up something that I'm glad to highlight is, Shavon, everyone's coming to the Advocacy Network with their own experience. So this is about building on it, figuring out what you want to learn more about, what do you want to practice, right? It's not like everyone's coming, just like we think about babies, it's not a blank slate. People have had these experiences. And so I think, and sometimes to have just an hour and a half a month to be together in community, to have time to reflect, to kind of put some of the pieces together. And I think with Jayleese, like, I think a lot of educators struggle with, like, where do I belong? Do I, is it in the classroom? Is it, and it can be tricky to find other opportunities that aren't kind of a direct path. And often when we hear people's stories, they're not a direct path. They're all over. Shavon mentioned that we organized an event 2 weeks ago with my students from Boston University, Wheelock College, Stephanie Currington students, and Kate Warren Barnes students in social work. And we had this, I would say, kind of spiritual experience in room 428 at the State House, where we sat in a circle, including the Commissioner of Early Education and Care, and everyone just talked about how they ended up where they were. And I learned things about people I have known for decades. And so just the power of telling stories. The last thing I'll say, and it's in the chat about parent voice. If you were on the call yesterday, we heard from Beth Bai, who's now the commissioner in Connecticut of early childhood, and she spoke, as a toddler teacher, as a state representative, as a state senator and commissioner, that her aha moment has been about the families and really listening and making space and time to hear from families. And we know we're partners with so many people in this work, but I think that is what that has kept coming up. So what does that look like? And how do we make sure not just educators, but family voice is included? Shavon and Jayleese, thank you so much for joining us today. And Titus, it's great to hear as well. We're so grateful. We will also be blogging about all the Advocacy Network participants. We've done a few. We've had a few Instagram takeovers. So we'll continue to highlight the work that they're doing. And then in August, we have our reception for reflection. Where we'll kind of take some time to acknowledge all that they've accomplished over the year and celebrate. So thanks everyone for joining us. We will see you tomorrow on the 9:30 call. Have a great day. Bye.